Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Jam podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1883. The topic is nutrition, and the title is Solution for Nutrition Tracking with Inconsistent Sleep Schedule. That's a very long title, but I wanted to make it clear of what it would be able to help with. I have clients that have inconsistent sleep schedules all the time, and mostly it's related to work. Every once in a while I have a client that just has some trouble with sleep, and then we have to manage that. But most often it's with nighttime shifts, 24-hour shifts, changing work schedules. Things can just be a little chaotic, and that can then lead into their nutrition being chaotic. So they often come to me, and when we talk about nutrition, they're uncertain as to what to do, and they struggle with how to track their nutrition properly. Typically, people track nutrition in 24-hour chunks, from midnight to midnight on Monday, midnight to midnight on Tuesday, and so on. But let's say on Monday you work a night shift and you're awake most of the day. But then Tuesday, you have a day off, and you sleep most of the day. What do you do on days where you have different amounts of sleep versus different amounts of time of being awake? So I have clients ask, do I eat more on the days I'm awake more? Do I eat less on the days I'm awake less? And that makes sense. But if so, how much more and how much less? So it can be very challenging. And then also throw into that the normal chaos of life, where all of a sudden you have an appointment sprung out of nowhere because you forgot about it, or there was a canceled appointment, or there's an emergency and now you're missing a meal and you have to choose different foods than what you thought you were going to choose. People with consistent schedules have enough trouble trying to be consistent with their nutrition. People with inconsistent schedules are going to have even more trouble. It is going to be challenging. So what can we do? In these cases, most often, what we do is we track with time blocks rather than 24-hour periods. What this means is we try to break our day down into thirds. And I do this actually with people with consistent schedules. I'm not a big fan of 24-hour tracking because although you can modify weight by controlling 24-hour tracking, it doesn't maximize body composition, doesn't maximize daily energy, doesn't maximize workout energy or workout performance, which then dictates how much stimulus you create in your workouts. There's a lot of stuff that is not maximized, not optimized, whenever you're just tracking with 24-hour tracking. So I encourage people to break their days into 3 chunks. So for example, somebody wakes up at 7 a.m. We say, okay, in the first 4 to 5 hours or so of being awake, can you get a third of your calories and protein? Because the first 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours of being awake is a third of their day. So typically if we sleep, 6 to 8 hours, you're going to be awake 16 to 18 hours. So that's going to give you ranges somewhere around 5-6 hours, somewhere in there, that if we break the day into thirds, that's going to be the time block. So you might say, okay, from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m., can I have a third of my calories and protein? From 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., can I have a third of my calories and protein? From 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., can I have a third of my calories and protein? The idea is we want to spread it throughout the day. It's still going to be consistent 24 hours, yes, but you're now going to be consistent per subsection of the day, which increases body composition, improves it, increases daily energy, improves workout performance. It helps to actually control those uncontrollables if you're only tracking per 24 hours. Now, this makes sense and is pretty nice if you wake up at a typical time every day and go to bed at a typical time every day. But what if you don't? What if you wake up at 3 in the morning? You apply the same concept. Every 4, 5, 6 hours, somewhere in there, every 4 to 6 hours, you get a third of your calories and protein. So from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., a third. 7 a.m. to 11 a.m., a third. 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., a third. That's the idea, is you just break it into sections and say, okay, in the first 1/3 of my day, can I have a third of my calories? In the second 1/3 of my day, another third of my calories? In the final 1/3 of my day, the final 1/3 of our calories. Now, let's say that you got off of, a double, really long work day, Maybe you had to work overnight, but then there was a kids event thing, and you've been awake for like 20 hours and you're dead tired. So on those days, do you eat more? Well, if you've been awake for 20 hours, you're probably going to have 4 windows of time to eat. But let's say another day you sleep most of the day and you're only awake, say, 10 hours. Then you might only have 2 windows. So again, we break the windows down every 4 to 6 hours. Now, on an individual basis, every once in a while, you got to fudge some things here and there. But if you're awake longer than a typical 16 to 18 hour day, we eat an extra meal. We use an extra time block. If you're awake less than a typical 16 to 18 hour day, we eat one less time block. So if I'm awake more, I eat more. If I'm awake less, I eat less. But it's per time block. So my one client, every 4 to 6 hours, their time targets are 600 calories with 40 grams of protein. Now, I actually give people ranges, but I wanted to make it simple just to understand. Is they're going to eat around 600 calories, around 40 grams of protein every 4 to 6 hours of being awake. So if they're only awake 12 hours that day, they have 2 of those. If they're awake 22 hours, they have 4 of those. If they're awake in typical 16 to 18 hours, they have 3 of those. So 600 calories, 40 grams of protein, plus or minus some normal variances. That's what we aim for every section of the day. It makes it easier because regardless of when you wake up, regardless of when you go to bed, regardless of whatever the hell's happening during the day, you only have to control every 4 to 6 hours. That's it. It's a lot easier. A lot easier. Because really, in 4 to 6 hours, you're going to have 1 or 2 meals. That's it. So maybe you have breakfast and a mid-morning snack. Boom, I got my 600 calories, got my 30 grams of protein, or 40 grams of protein, whatever your target might be, and then you move on. Maybe in the next window, it's a dinner time, and you're like, okay, I want to have a big dinner. I'm going out with friends. I'm going to eat all of my calories and all of my protein in one meal. So you can break that up into however many meals you want, but again, the time frame is every 4 to 6 hours, and you're aiming for roughly about a third of your calories in protein. Now, if you don't know how many calories of protein you're supposed to have, we got you covered. Go to the website, www.brutalirongym.com. Go to Free Nutrition Education. The first document on that page is Create Your Own Nutrition Program. It'll teach you how to decide the calories and protein amount that's correct for you. And then you divide that by 3, and then there is your calories and protein that you should have per 4 to 6 hour time block. The idea is within an inconsistent schedule, we want to establish a consistent approach. Then, over time, to push progress one way or the other, we have a known schedule with known numbers and a known result from that schedule and numbers that we can now adjust from. So maybe we want to go 600 calories up to 700 calories. Maybe we want to go from 40 grams of protein to 50 grams of protein. You now have values that gave you an outcome that you can predict. If I modify those values, I can predict the change in the outcome. That's the idea, is to create consistency within inconsistency as best as you can. And that's where using time blocks rather than a 24-hour schedule is best. Okay, I thought that would be helpful. If you want any other help other than the free information we have on our website, right now I'm offering free virtual consultations. You can sign up via email, brutalirongym@gmail.com. You can go to our website, www.brutalirongym.com, go to one-on-one services page, and you can sign up for the free consultation there. I would just like to meet you if you want to work together. We can talk, discuss your goals, discuss what your challenges are. I can tell you how we would overcome those, and then you can decide if you like that approach or not. And it works out pretty well. If you're interested, just let me know. Again, my email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. Okay, if you like the podcast, please share the podcast. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on our website. Also, if you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.